Welcome back. This is World Insight, our special program presented to you on the sideline of the World Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2026. Amid tensions across the Atlantic, the 2026 World Economic Forum Annual Meeting is underway. On this global stage, world leaders from government, business, civil society, and academia engage in forward-looking discussions on global issues and set priorities. Of course, there are a lot of thorny issues to be resolved. So I caught up with Borge Brende, the President and CEO of World Economic Forum, right before the forum started, about tensions between the U.S. and Europe and the role of World Economic Forum annual meeting in that regard. Let's take a look. What a pleasure to see you in Davos.
Thank you so much. So great to have you back here. This is now a tradition.
I'm so honored that you are honoring this tradition and talking to our audience in China, all over the world, at the very first day of the World Economic Forum. But Borge, this could not be a more complicated world, as we chatted right before this interview. So how is this a spirit of dialogue likely to change anything?
It's true that this meeting is happening against the most complicated geopolitical backdrop, maybe since 1945. But to break that impasse and to move on and see some progress, a prerequisite for that is that people and the countries and businesses start to speak to each other. And that's why we need a spirit of dialogue to also to move the world forward in many ways.
It sounds encouraging, but eventually what kinds of results are you expecting so that people can say, oh, this is a successful annual meeting of the World Economic Forum?
You know, the World Economic Forum is not a fixture. We have a platform where we enable leaders to make progress. So it's a little bit up to the leaders themselves. We can lead them, we can lead the horses to the well, but we cannot force the horses to drink the water. But I do think that during this week we will hopefully have very good discussions on Ukraine. We will also have discussions on Gaza. I think there will also be discussions on the role of the new technologies. I think the new technologies are now the driver of growth. Because last year in Davos, everyone was worried that we were going to go into a slow growth period like in the 1970s. But we have seen that even with all the geopolitical turbulence, all the tariffs, we're seeing the growth globally is more than 3%. That is a surprise. And we see, for example, the growth now in China is also robust. India.
I would love to go to the economy side, but let's talk about geopolitics first, because that's on the top of mind for everybody. You used to talk about the world is possibly in a geopolitical deficit. And look at what's happening over the past 48 hours between two allies, the United States and the European countries. Now, we do not know how the tariffs are likely to be exerted toward one another at this moment. But tell us more about how is the forum likely to shape this conversation. As you said, you're a platform, but how you shape it is also very important.
It's true, and I'm now even moving from a deficit to a geopolitical recession. That's how complex it is. But as I mentioned, hopefully this geopolitics will not kill growth and prosperity for the future. That can be avoided if we can avoid full escalation of wars. Just imagine if what happened in Iran ended up in a full-fledged war in the whole region. That would have severe impact on oil and gas prices and all that. But how can the World Economic Forum contribute? You know, we have 1,000 of the 1,000 Fortune CEOs here. We have more than 400 political leaders, also great leadership from China here. When they come together on our platform, hopefully, they will then discuss topics where there's also overlap in their interest. Because it's all now about interest politics compared to before. But you know, the leaders have to shape it. We can enable these kind of discussions.
Right. U.S. President has already threatened to exert tariffs on the 8 European countries that have been supporting Greenland. While at the same time, the European Parliament, European Commission are now in discussions about the so-called Anti-Coercion Act, which is being used against those unfriendly nations of the EU. So World Economic Forum is based in Davos. And many see this as a platform of European voices as well. So how do you think the European voices will be having an equal conversation with the American voice here?
It's true that the World Economic Forum is based in the neutral Switzerland. I think that also makes us more attractive when there is so much tension. I think our platform is trusted. We are as Chinese as we are American, we are as European as we are African. That is our strength. We do see, since we know what bilateral meetings they've asked for, bilateral meeting rooms and all this, I can share this secret with you and your then watchers, that many European leaders are meeting, but I think also there will be meetings between European leaders and President Trump here. I'm pretty sure.
You served once as the foreign minister of your country. You managed through that tenure to resolve some of the thorny bilateral and international issues, Borge. And now many believe over the years you have become a very seasoned executive of international organizations such as World Economic Forum. So how do you see the nature of transatlantic relationship now? If you were sitting in their chair, what would you do? And as a result, how do you facilitate them to do so?
We are, of course, observing that the transatlantic relationship is now being discussed. There are also differences. There are many hypotheses. And that's what we will now have to watch very carefully in the coming days in Davos too, where I think we will have at least 5 or 6 of the 7 G7 leaders here, including Mr. Trump. How will they interact, and will they find a path? You remember, sometimes they do find paths that are not expected. Almost a year ago, we thought it was going to be a full-fledged trade war between China and the US. It was quite serious, but then through negotiations back and forth, I think both countries saw that they also was not in their interest to decouple. Things can change also very fast in this geopolitical landscape. One day it is Iran, another day is Venezuela, the other day is Ukraine, then it is Gaza, and now is Greenland. So it is very complicated, and of course news media has never had so many news to report.
We look at some of the latest tweets. Of course, there are many tweets coming out every day, trying to digest like everybody. Talking about the U.S. now probably look at its own national interest, not putting peace as the priorities anymore, as a result of the Nobel Peace Prize or this and that. So, for World Economic Forum, are you talking about peace? Or are you talking about conflicts?
So we talk about peace and reconciliation as a prerequisite to avoid further escalations of conflicts. So, if you speak to President Trump, and you will hear his speeches later in the week, he will say that he has resolved 8 wars. And that is his perspective. And there are, of course, different perspectives on this. And that's why it's important that the World Economic Forum doesn't get involved into these kind of rhetorics. We do think it really matters that the leaders can be here and we can have a constructive dialogue. We're very pleased, for example, to have Vice Premier He with us here. He's had such an outstanding career, also with the chair of NDRC before, but now also navigating the whole economic and also trade agenda for China. So everyone is now very interested in what message he will send, and I guess he will build probably on the message and a very important speech of President Xi Jinping in 2017, where he underlined that it is important to stick to the win-win model.
That's Borge Brende, President and CEO of World Economic Forum, talking to me about the latest development in the cross-Atlantic relationship and what the World Economic Forum could do to serve as a platform. The global economy has been surprisingly resilient, said Borge Brende in my interview. China's economy has shown strong resilience and continues to contribute most of the global growth. On the sidelines of the event, we talk about China's development and global innovation, not only in AI, but also clean energy. China has been proposing different initiatives over the years, and particularly the Chinese philosophy of how it sees the multipolar world. How is the forum observing these initiatives, these suggestions coming from China, and what do you think is the right way to go?
We listen very carefully, and we are in a privileged situation that we have had senior Chinese leadership here in Davos every year, but also we have the tremendous summer Davos. Then in Tianjin and Dalian, we're going to Dalian in the summer under also the leadership of the Chinese premier. And, I think that speech in 2017 from Xi Jinping had a lot of impact, and next year it will be a 10 years anniversary for that speech. So of course we will be very honored on the 10th anniversary of that incredibly important speech to have President Xi Jinping back in Davos opening our meeting.
The 15th five-year plan, China already made it to the rest of the world at the end of last year, the outline. Now, how much do you think that can, in a way, enrich the conversation here? And meanwhile, how much do you think others can also participate and be a benefiter as China progresses?
We're already benefiting because China growing around 5% contributes to almost 30% of the overall global growth, maybe even more. So the Chinese growth is beneficial not only for China, but also for those that do export and also deal with Chinese businesses. What is interesting now in the new 5 years plan is also the focus on research and development, innovation, and also that China has taken a different approach when it comes to artificial intelligence, is open sourced, and that represents a different approach. And we're seeing now so many unicorns, startups, and also innovators in China. And that ecosystem is something that we're following very closely. And we will have a special focus on this also during summer Davos in Dalian.
Artificial intelligence, whenever we talk about it, not only the benefits it brings to all of us, but also the cooperation and competition dialogue. So what do you make of that, especially between China and the United States? Both leaders of both countries are likely to be here.
It's true. I think we just have to realize that in the real political world, there will be fierce competition between China and the US on who's going to lead on the frontier technologies. And China is investing so much now in R&D and also to strengthen this part of the economy. China is already leading on the renewables, solar, also wind, speed train. And now I think also on the EVs, the electrical vehicles, we have key people from BYD here, and Europeans are also buying a lot of the BYDs because they're good cars.
Batteries companies as well.
Yeah, exactly. I should have mentioned that. The battery companies, the revolution in battery storage and the prices for batteries is to drive down the prices like happened with solar is a prerequisite for also future revolution in electrical vehicles and also storage of renewables. Then you don't need to balance it as much as in the past with coal or gas-fired power plants.
Now, the forum has always been an advocate for clean energy and for energy efficiency. However, we have seen some setbacks as being expressed by certain politicians, not only just in the US, but elsewhere in the world, about whether they will achieve the goal or not for carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. How does the forum see this kind of apparent setbacks?
Dynamic in the investments in renewables and all the decarbonization that is happening, that train has left the station. It's going to happen. So if there is stalemate in international negotiations about targets and all this, that's a different topic. But we're seeing now trillions of US dollars invested and investing companies in this new low carbon world. And these are business decisions. And it's fascinating to follow. Solar is now 1/10 of the price 10 years ago, and in most countries solar is the cheapest way of electricity with zero emissions. And if there can be a breakthroughs in storing this kind of electricity in batteries that is much cheaper, you will see that there will be other states and countries than China also that will then develop into so-called electro states.
The World Economic Forum has been a forum in which a lot of stakeholders are coming together over the years. You've been serving in this organization for decades, and you've been traveling to so many parts of the world, including China, several times a year. So many in China are asking the question, how will the forum remain, and probably even better, be a stabilizer of the world, given your structural changes of the organization, given the dramatic changes going on in the world right now?
So the World Economic Forum played a special role in what was called the time of globalization. But now we're in a different context, and I still think the World Economic Forum is important, maybe even more important, because now there's so difficult to even get the right people in the same room. And since we are a multi-stakeholder platform, business, governments, international organizations, and also the leading scientists, we have 10 Nobel laureates here in Davos, I think it's even more important for us now to fill this role as a bridge builder. And I think what the English say, the proof is in the pudding. And we never had this kind of historic numbers. We have 400 ministers, we have 65 heads of state. We have all the key also tech people almost here. So the World Economic Forum is doing well, even if the world is not in its best shape, but we also do think that we can get it back on track.
But in the earlier interview, you talked to the journalist talking about the World Economic Forum, saying, do not fix what is not broken.
Exactly.
Which means you try to be a stabilizer of this organization as well.
We should build on our strengths, but then we also have to be innovative in new areas. But for us, the trust is critical. We do have the trust of almost all the big players, nations, but also companies. And that trust you have to earn every day, every day.
Well said.
Thank you.
Borge, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time on a very busy schedule. Appreciate it.